Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wimberley Village Library program. Thank you for being here. And today we are going to talk about emerging from lockdown techniques for stress resilience. Go ahead, guys.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Carol Holguin. I am a licensed massage therapist and a trauma touch therapist. I live here in Wimberley, Texas, where I have a private practice. I also do some personal coaching and am working on retreats where we're going to be using the tools that we're going to be teaching today and using them in the exploration of creativity and self-care. So let me go ahead and share the screen and we will get this started here. All right. Somehow, there we go. Bring it over. Okay, so emerging from lockdown and techniques for stress resilience. And I just introduced myself, and so I'm going to let the other three of my co-facilitators introduce themselves, starting with Tim.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I'm Tim Nichols. I'm a minister, martial arts teacher, body worker, and trauma touch therapist in Inglewood, Colorado, just south of Denver. My work specializes in creating attainable ways to do necessary things that feel, and sometimes actually are, physically and emotionally dangerous. Kathy?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Kathy Lewis. I have a private practice. I'm a licensed massage therapist and a trauma touch therapist. I have a private practice in Denver, Colorado, where I work with people who deal with anxiety, PTSD, and people who have experienced trauma and who are experiencing chronic illness. I also am I'm department head of massage therapy at Colorado School of Healing Arts in Lakewood, Colorado, where trauma touch therapy was developed. And I am one of the trauma touch therapy instructors for our beginning class. Nancy?
Hi, I am Nancy Yerger from Colorado Springs. I'm a massage and trauma touch therapist. My passion is helping people get back into their bodies so they can find the guidance from within that they need to move forward in their lives.
Great. So the four of us have been working on this seminar for several months, and we're excited to be able to present it to you today. We're going to be sharing some practical tools for navigating stressful times. And just a little overview of what you'll be experiencing today. We are going to be looking at how this last year has kind of brought us to this point. And that is, the last year's been rough in so many ways, from isolation. Some of us have had too much togetherness. There's illness, fear of illness, concern for our loved ones that may not be in the same area, confusing information, some loneliness and loss, possibly loss of job, of loved ones. And for some of us, a loss of a sense of direction, like maybe we kind of got sidetracked during this last year. And I have friends and clients this last month or so that when things started to open back up again, started confiding in me that they were actually feeling more stressed now coming out of lockdown and out of the safety of their own homes, even though they were fully vaccinated. So maybe you've experienced some of this yourself. You may not have thought of the pandemic as traumatic, but we're going to explore this concept along with what actually happens in the body during the stress response, and then the concept of stress resilience during our program today. And then Kathy and Nancy are going to demonstrate the techniques for us. And then Tim is actually going to lead us through an experiential practice with some integration. And then at the end, we will have question and answer. But you are welcome to type questions that you may have in the chat box throughout the seminar. We'll be monitoring that and hopefully answering your questions. If for some reason we don't get your question answered, please save it for the end or bring it back up again at the end, and we will answer your question at that time. So stress, trauma, and the concept of stress resilience. What is stress? And stress is defined as any perceived threat, and that can be physical, mental, or emotional, that threatens our body's homeostasis, or that the body at rest in a neutral state. And the primary word there that I want you to remember is that this is a perceived threat. So it doesn't actually have to be something physical that's happening. It can be something that we've actually been thinking about. So what's stressful to me may not be stressful to you. It is a subjective kind of thing. So unresolved stress can lead to what's known as chronic stress, which means that it leaves your body and your mind in a state of hyperarousal, or meaning that your nervous system stays activated. And real quick, on a scale of 1 to 10, I want you to type in the chat, what is your current level of stress? 1 being no stress at all or mild stress, and 10 being I'm on the verge of a panic attack. If you could type those in. And I can't see the chat right now, so.
So I've got an 8, a 4, and I'm not going to identify. I'm just going to read general numbers.
Yeah.
A 6. So we've got lots of kind of mid-range. A 7, 8. So lots of mid-range to high. We've got a 3. So lots of different.
So we're really along this spectrum, right? And that's what I mean about subjective. So it's all based on what your experience is and what's going on, not only in your external environment, but your internal environment as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about trauma, because as I mentioned before, that you may not have thought of the pandemic as traumatic, but let's look at what trauma is. Trauma is defined as a stressful event that causes overwhelm to the nervous system. So in other words, it's not just a mild stress, it's probably something a little more intense. And again, we're mentioning stress in the definition of trauma, okay? So it's gonna activate that stress response. And so again, stress being a perceived threat, the stressor that is causing trauma can be something that's happening right now, or it can be something that happened in the past, or it could be something that we're really kind of conjuring, right? That we're thinking about, and it's overwhelmed the nervous system. And let's look back on the past year for a moment. We had an unknown and sometimes deadly virus that was spreading across the globe. It caused shutdowns, isolation, and uncertainty. So we could certainly fit that into the definition of stress, potentially trauma, depending on what your experience was. And do you think that this might fit the definition of trauma? And is it any wonder that lots of people around the globe were feeling stressed, anxiety, or somewhat traumatized? So let's look at what happens in your body during a stress response. Your body's nervous system is equipped with a monitoring system. And there's a small part of the brain called the amygdala that monitors the internal and external environment for threat. So when it registers a threat, it sends a communication to the rest of the body through the form of chemical reactions. And this causes kind of a cascade of things to happen. The first ones being an elevated heart rate. So you may feel like your heart is racing. Your respiration may become more shallow and also quicker. Blood pressure may raise. You may have increased muscle tension and increased alertness, so a sense of being kind of on. And it also slows the digestive and sexual function. So those things that are not considered to be emergent will be kind of tamped down. And this is frequently referred to as the fight or flight or the stress response. So your body's preparing to meet a threat. It's your survival instinct. It's what helps to keep you alive, keep you out of trouble. So what happens during when you're stressed? What happens to your mind, your mental state? Well, part of the functioning of that survival mind is that the front part of your brain, the part that is your executive functioning, your problem solving and creative brain, it gets kind of damped down so that you don't have quick access to that problem solving or thinking through and processing of information. I know for me, when I get stressed, one of the first things I do is I put my hands here, because I feel like that's that's helping me focus a little bit more and kind of like clearing out the outside noise. So what happens to your mood? So you can imagine if you are feeling threatened, that you're a stressed brain may not have access to the feel-good chemicals, the ones that help calm us down, serotonin, the dopamine. And so we may feel edgy, we may feel irritable, or we may feel vulnerable. And then our relationships, when we're talking with someone else or we're in close proximity, like we have been for the last over a year, those relationships may feel strained because it's really difficult to communicate with empathy when you're feeling unclear or you're feeling vulnerable or even irritable and edgy. So I want you to type in the chat right now. Do you know what your go-to? So let's talk about behaviors, because behavior is actually kind of a culmination of all of those things. So what do we do when we feel stressed? For some of us, it may be that you feel that you are reactive, like you're reacting to people's communication or to small little disturbances that happen in your environment. I know for me, I tend to stress eat. So when I feel stressed, it's like I'm eating without thinking about what I'm putting in my body. For some, you may be oversleeping, have a sense of fatigue, or wanting to shut out the rest of the world. You may try and keep the peace in a stressful situation where you're constantly monitoring and arranging the environment so that you can kind of keep a control on what's going on around you. So again, let's type into the chat box. Do you know what your go-to stress response is? Like what you do, that reaction when you feel stressed? Can you type those in the chat box for me?
And I'll read them. Once again, I won't identify people, just a response. So we've got irritability as one. Food, definitely food. Eating sweets is another, eating lots of sweets. Get a long, deep professional massage. That's a great answer.
Right.
Sleep, eat badly, try to nap, Netflix and binge, definitely. I can say mine rather than type it because I won't be able to do both. I run in circles. So I actually get stopped and don't know what to do. And so I end up kind of like doing little bits of nothing in circles is my go-to response. So
Okay.
The British Baking Show, great answer.
Oh, I still do that. That and Gilmore Girls. I've watched every season, like multiple times. So
Those are great. Those are great.
Forgive me if I'm looking over here. I'm actually able to see some faces over here on the right side of my screen. So So lots of different responses, lots of different ways that we cope with or respond or react to stress and anxiety. So I want to bring us to stress resilience, the concept of stress resilience, and that is defined as, well, first of all, I want to bring up Gail Wagnild of the Resilience Center. She defines stress resilience as the ability to acknowledge a situation that has become difficult or painful and to choose a response that leads to growth. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that means. How do we build stress resilience? And why is it important in helping us to feel comfortable moving forward at this time where we're coming out of lockdown? So we're going to look at the two parts. The first part, acknowledging the stressful state. So that you might think that that's easy, like we just acknowledge, right? This is what I do, right? But we're going to go a little bit more than that. We're going to actually help you become a little bit more aware of what causes your stress and anxiety, but also acknowledging how you feel, like so that hopefully you can start catching on earlier, so that before you get into a deep funk or you get to that place where you're panicked, you know. So part of acknowledging the stressful state is knowing early symptoms like tension in my neck, or I just yelled at my husband and this is not something that I normally do, or I'm not able to get out of bed this morning, and I know it's because there's stuff weighing heavy on me. So part of it is acknowledging, hey, I'm stressed, right? But being able to acknowledge what that looks like in your life on an earlier sense. Then the second part of that is choosing to respond in a way that leads to growth. And so that's going to mean something different for everybody. But what we want to help you get to the point of is that you have some awareness of your stressed state, or what it looks like, what it feels like, what's actually happening, and then choosing to respond. That means that we don't brush it off. We don't try to escape from it. We don't power through it, but we're actually going to work with it. And that's what we're going to be showing you today. We have some tools that are going to help with both the awareness part and the choice of response. And remembering that stress causes changes in your body, and specifically your brain, that may make clear thinking kind of muddied. We're going to help you cut through the fog. We're going to give you some techniques to help cut through the fog and potentially that muddied thinking, and allow us to make choices that are aligned with kind of that your normal state, the part of you when you're at a neutral resting state, the homeostasis. And what we refer to that is sensing versus thinking. So in other words, we're going to be teaching you how to drop into the body. So coming out of this place where we're like overthinking, overanalyzing, or kind of stuck in the spin, coming down into the body. And in a minute here, Kathy and Nancy are going to show you how to do that. But what I want you to do right now is I want you to take a moment, put both feet on the floor. So you're gonna get square on your seat. Go ahead and put both feet on the floor, and you can even rub your feet on the floor so you can actually feel them kind of connect. And then I want you to imagine a hook on the top of your head with a string, and that someone is gently pulling so that your spine rises from your pelvis and up. And from there, I want you to just let your shoulders relax and go ahead and take a couple of nice gentle breaths, following your breath in and out. And following your breath in and out, and you may feel your body kind of settle in. And one more breath for good measure. In and out. So now Nancy is going to lead Kathy into dropping into her body and exploring emerging from lockdown. And I'm going to take this screen off. There we go.
And I'm going to back my chair up just a bit.
Okay.
Nancy, how is that?
That's perfect.
Great.
Okay. Are you comfortable?
I am.
Take a second.
In
Wiggle around.
my head, yes.
Okay. So Kathy, you have gone through a lot this past year with COVID.
Mhm.
And is it okay with your body if we check in and just see
Absolutely.
how it's doing?
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't you now take a few deep breaths. And is there some place today in your body that needs your attention? Just take all the time you need. It's
So there's something at the base of my throat and then at the base of my, right underneath my rib cage.
okay. Okay. Do you need touch? Do you need to be touching right now? Is that what I'm seeing?
I think maybe just the top
Mm-hmm.
or not, or maybe both.
Okay. Okay. So as you're just focusing on these two places, is there a sensation that's coming to your mind?
So the sensation in my throat, and it's just above where my
Mhm.
feet are, rather than right underneath, is actually that feeling that you get when you're nauseous. It's like a hollow
Mhm.
right there. And then the feeling in my underneath my sternum at my rib cage is actually more of a pain.
And so since we have two sensations right there, is it possible maybe, I'm curious, to breathe between those two areas, sort of to connect them?
Yeah.
So just take a few breaths, just right between. And is the sensation changing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So right there, right under your fingertips, what is that sensation?
It's like I want to open it,
Mm-hmm.
like it needs space.
Mm-hmm. So what is the sensation of needing space? right there under your fingers.
Stretching.
Mm-hmm. Is there a motion? It looks like. Is it stretching? Does it need?
Yeah. It's like, I can feel it in my back. Too.
Mm-hmm. And what is that sensation in your back?
The back part is more like a tightness, but it's definitely connected to this.
Mm-hmm. Is there a motion that might connect that? Does it need to move?
Yeah, it's like it kind of isn't here anymore. It's more in the back.
Mm-hmm. And the sensation of having something in the back there. What is that?
It's just moving. It's
Mm-hmm.
that opening feeling again.
Mm-hmm. Can you breathe into that opening feeling? Yeah, good. Keep breathing. And as you're breathing, is the sensation changing?
Yeah, it's just kind of like dissipating
Mm-hmm.
down this way.
Mm-hmm.
That guy a little bit.
Uh-huh. Is there a color or a texture right there to that sensation under your fingers? Right there?
It makes me think of those. I don't know why it's green, but it makes me think of those squishy balls,
Mm-hmm.
stress reliever kind of balls.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hollow, but a full and kind of, yeah, kind of a yucky feeling.
Mm-hmm. So what's the sensation of having a yucky, squishy right in your throat, right there? What is that?
I want it gone.
Can you breathe into that right there under your fingers? Is your breath going into that area?
Kind of around
Around it? Okay.
the little ball.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like the breath is making it okay. Like it's not gone,
Mm-hmm.
but it's okay. It's smaller or less.
Like that. Mm-hmm. Is there a memory in there? Right in that area?
It's, yeah, it's,
It's okay.
it's that feeling of,
Mm-hmm. Right there, right under your fingers. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Right there.
it's losing my words after,
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
it's after I had COVID. My brain couldn't think and I lost my words.
Mm-hmm. So right there, what is the sensation of losing your words? Right there under your fingers.
I want that connection back.
Mm-hmm.
I want that connection back, and I want that ball that feels like it's in the way to be,
Mm-hmm.
but it is smaller now. It is smaller now.
Mm-hmm. Keep breathing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's shifted?
Yeah.
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 Would you like to share with us what was going on? How it?
You're closer.
Okay.
I'm gonna clean myself up just a hair. So what that was for me, and realize that I am practiced at dropping into my body, so it tends to go a little bit quicker. But what that was for me is during this time, two things have happened that were major events in my life. One is that I had major abdominal surgery, and the place where that still, it was wonderful, it was great that I had it, but the place that still causes me some irritation is right at the sternum, which is where the top of my scar is. And then I had COVID in January of this year, and my COVID was reasonable, never, hospitalized, but I had fairly significant post-COVID neurological syndrome. And during that time, I had extreme fatigue and lost my words. I was teaching anatomy at the time for school via Zoom. I couldn't come up with the connections of muscles and how they moved or what the names of the attachments were, and or people's names. To this day, I still often misidentify someone, even though I know who they are and my brain thinks it knows who they are, and I will call them the wrong name. And for me, as a teacher, that disconnect is a very hard thing to be with. And that ball was that, which is interesting to me because it's not how I think of it in my head. How I think of that in my head is there's this connection that's missing. How it came up for my body is there's this thing in the way. There's this thing blocking the way. And being able to breathe, even though it was around, it felt like it was going around that ball. Being able to breathe around that ball, it started kind of like condensing is what I would say. And it's still there, as often happens with my body. Things often don't leave completely, as they don't have to. There's like a little pea. a little green pea that's right there. But it's not stuck in my throat. It's not bothering me. It's just kind of there. So, and this is, for us as trauma touch therapists, once again, getting used to listening to what the body says and allowing the body to guide us. Whereas my head would have taken me, if I wanted to work with that, my head would have taken me in a completely different direction of, well, here's what I need to do. I need to do some brain exercises so that I can work with this. And my body has a wisdom that can be accessed. And I really believe it's an innate wisdom. I believe that we have this when we're young. So for me, having Nancy walk me through and notice those things when she notices something, if you notice that I then allow myself to do it. So there's a movement that wants to happen. She acknowledges that and it allows me to, oh yeah, I can move. I can breathe around it or into it. I can find those connections. And then this part where we talk about it is what we call integration. And sometimes what's in the body and what came up for you, as I did today. And sometimes you do not at all know what that was, but that still will move through. And so that's a little bit about that. Nancy, is there anything that you saw that you want to add to that?
Not offhand. I want to congratulate you for your bravery in doing this on camera. And
Thank you.
that was some very nice work, my dear.
Thank you. Great. So now that you have gotten to see a little bit of what Trauma Touch might look like, Tim is going to lead us all through a guided experience where you'll get to experience a little bit of this for yourself. So Tim.
So I'm gonna return us to something that Carol said right at the beginning. As you think about re-entering the world and other people who've been in seclusion for the last year, re-entering the world, what is it? What thoughts and feelings come up for you? And just give yourself a moment to notice what's there. And then as you're noticing what's there, take a moment to notice where in your body are you feeling that? And what is the sensation that you're feeling in that particular place in your body? Is it prickly or smooth, hot or cold? Is there a color, a texture, a movement? And give yourself the space to just be with that sensation. And then as you sit with that sensation, is there something in particular that sensation wants or needs from you. A breath into it, a movement. Does it need a cookie? Just acknowledgement that it's there. And know that you don't, it's okay to just notice what it wants, notice what it needs. You may not be able to actually provide that thing right now. It's okay to just notice the wanting and be with the wanting. But if you can provide a movement, a breath, what it might be looking for, go ahead and do that. And then give yourself a moment now to come back to the world. Notice what's on your screen. Notice the room around you, the chair underneath you, the floor under your feet. Give yourself a chance to be fully present to your surroundings and still hold on to what you noticed. And let that be part of your reality as well. And take all the time you need to do that, but I'm going to keep talking. So what we're doing here in an exercise like this is cultivating an ability to be present to sensation, to attend to the sensation in your body and be with it. And what that does for you when you take a moment in your day to do that, what that does for you is it pulls you out of the thoughts and the feelings, allows you to get just a little bit of distance on, the constant chattering of the thoughts in your head, the constant movement of the feelings, and get a little bit of distance, and lets us come to a slightly different place where we can maybe get a little additional perspective, maybe see some options that we didn't see before, maybe discover the ability to just, instead of be overwhelmed by the thoughts and the feelings as they're happening, get just enough distance that we can kind of watch the train go by, but not necessarily ride it. And from that place, then perhaps we see some options we didn't have before, we make decisions we might not otherwise have made, or perhaps we just get a moment's respite from riding the train, and that's a valuable thing in itself. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for taking the opportunity to listen to your body today and get in touch with what's happening in there. And I'd love for you, if you're willing, to hop into the chat and tell us, what was this like for you? What came up? What did you notice?
would also say, since we don't have a large number of participants, if anybody would like to unmute and be on screen, if you have good audio and share, you're also more than welcome to do that. Or if you have any questions, or that would be a good way to do it too.
Okay, we have somebody saying, I really need to breathe. Yes, you really do. It's kind of important.
And in Trauma Touch, we work with the breath a lot. We work with breathing into areas of your body, bringing that breath into areas of your body, or also doing those long, slow breaths, kind of like Carol took us through in the beginning. We work with that, expanding that breath, and especially that exhale. When you get in those really anxious places, taking a breath in and having a really long exhale and just allowing that exhale to linger can be a really great way to bring yourself down from that that monkey mind space. So that's a great one. Anybody else?
I was going to say that while I was doing that with you, Tim, I got this very distinct image of, there's a Japanese drawing or something of a long-necked crane kind of almost curling its neck up and over into a ball. And the sensation I got was that image, but also the feeling of being so alone this past year, sitting in this room and being so alone. And I'm not that way anymore, but I'm still relating to the world as if I am so alone. I'm walking through it, but I feel so alone. So I think what that sensation needs is, I've got to get out and party a little bit with somebody or more people, but definitely that area needs to be in contact again with people. So thank you.
My pleasure. Well, and this is that is a great example of a way where you can do that exercise and something comes up that you can't do necessarily right away. But it's great just to notice, okay, this is what I need. It may take a couple days to get it organized, but this is what I need.
Yeah, get out of the fetal position and get on with life.
I guess I wanted to say something here too. When actually, Kathy, when you were dropped down into the body and that initial, contact here, sometimes just making that initial contact, the ability to drop into the body and make that initial contact and not really knowing what's there, but just paying attention to where my hand wants to go or where my body is actually, like for me, when Tim, when you were going through leading us through this, and the side of my neck was just screaming. It was, it felt like it was in this vice like this. And so my initial response was to stretch it and open it the other way. And part of this work that we do as trauma touch therapists is like what Nancy did, was paying attention what Kathy was doing as Kathy's dropped in. But you can do this on your own as well. And that's why we wanted to let Tim kind of guide you through, so you had an idea of what this looks like when you don't have a therapist there watching and kind of facilitating, holding this space for you. So I don't know if that makes any sense for those of you who have not experienced this kind of work before. If you had any questions about doing this on your own, or if you had any trouble dropping into the body, noticing sensation. I know, we know as therapists that it's a process that can unfold over time. So it's not necessarily going to happen this first, time that you're going through it, or it may have. For a lot of people, it does. We may not know what to do or where that's going to lead us, but I just want to encourage you to practice and to check in with your body. Okay, so yes, we have someone saying, I would love to do it when I'm home alone. Yes, absolutely. For me, I kind of create a space at home, if that makes sense, whether it's in my bedroom or in the living room in a chair when there's nobody else around. I think it helps to not have the distractions. But I have done this in the middle of a meeting before with my eyes wide open. When something has gotten triggered or come up for me, I've been able to kind of check in, like do a spot check. So absolutely. Thanks for sharing that.
Any other questions or thoughts or comments? So like Carol said, this work can definitely unfold over time. And so if you feel like it's something you want to talk through more with us, Carol, do we have a slide with our information, or can we put our information in the chat? What would be easiest?
I'm going to bring it up so you have. Sorry, let me get to the end here.
Yeah.
There we go. So there's all of our names and email addresses, so you guys can jot them down or take a screenshot of your computer.
And if you haven't noticed, we love to talk about this stuff or email about this stuff, so don't hesitate. If something comes up for you later that you just need to talk about or you have questions, we would love to help.
Great. All right. So I guess if there aren't any other questions, I'm not seeing my chat right now, so.
I don't see any other questions.
Okay,
no.
So we're going to go ahead and close for today. Please let us know if you have any questions. Go ahead and email us. Sometimes it's easier to do it in a private email, and I totally get that. So we'll go ahead and unshare the screen so I can end the meeting or leave. I guess, Nomi, if you want to go ahead and close the meeting then.
Well, I just want to thank you for this great program, and I'll be emailing you with some questions if you don't mind.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Do.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you all so much for coming. Have a lovely day.
Thank you,
too.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.